Today we have a guest speaker, a guest shiur. Every day you get to hear from the same person. Every few days it's not so exciting. So now we have a guest speaker all the way from France. His name is Rabbi Levi Khan. He's the Rav of Lubavitch in France and the member of Vadad Ben Lubavitch in France. He's a big mumche in mikvos. You'll see on your tables is a book called Meir, which I use a lot, from Meir Posen, who's known as one of the biggest mumche in mikvos. The Rebbe sent people to him. Mikvos that were built in Russia during communism were built by him. And Rabbi Khan learned by Rabbi Posen, and he checks mikvos in Europe. So there's a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and I'm sure that you're going to enjoy the shiur.
We'll start very simple, very pashut. Often people say a Lubavitcher mikveh, without the Rebbe's mikveh, and so on. The truth is, if you look in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, you have mikvahs, and he explains there's before Chasnida there is the mikvah of the Alter Rebbe. There's a few tshuvos of the Tzemach Tzedek that explain the chidush or the halachic halachyelich of the takana of mikvahs of the Alter Rebbe. And the truth is that the main takana of the Alter Rebbe of mikvahs, when you see the Alter Rebbe's mikveh, is possible to have a hot mikveh. The ganze takana was to have a hot mikveh. There's even in one of the tshuvos from the Tzemach Tzedek, I didn't have time to look over the things, but so if it's not 100% precise, isn't it? But in one of the tshuvos, so the Tzemach Tzedek brings down the famous quote that Alter Rebbe says, Hagam, we all know that Alter Rebbe made 10 takanos. But he says, if you'll merit Gan Eden, it's be'ikah, mitzad this idea of making a hot mikveh. That's the lashon of the Tzemach Tzedek, what brings it in his tshuva. What's the big takana? But if in Achipashon and Shulchan Aruch, mitzad the idea of gezeres merchatz, not to have so at the time they didn't heat mikvahs. You had a very high percentage of mikvahs were mayon. A lot of times, for them to go to a mayon mikveh, in Germany, for example, there's a mikveh adayim that they built. There's different places over there called Shum. Shum is, what's the shutavis of Shum? Speyer, Worms and Mayens. That was the biggest community then. So over there you still have 2-3 mikvahs of that time, but to go into the mikveh you have to go down 12 stories, 12 floors. To get to the mikveh, you have to go all the way down, and it's as a Kaahen, I didn't have in the Arizal's mikveh, but ich stell sich vor that this mikveh is much colder than the Arizal's mikveh. It's much. So the takana of the Alter Rebbe was how to make a box that it shouldn't be a keli, that you're able to put it in the river, in the water, that it should be able to teva when it's hot. But this is a pashut. The Mashenkein, what we call today in Grade, very interesting, the ganze Welt kemat heint uses hot mikvahs without realizing that it's based on the Alter Rebbe's takana. It's not, Oifen achi poshut, al pi Shulchan Aruch, it's not so poshut. In the end of Hilchos Mikvos, al pi Shulchan Aruch, it's not so poshut, and today the whole world uses it, hot mikvahs, and that is the main takana of the Alter Rebbe. That's Nekuda Aleph. Nekuda Beis, the mikveh, what we do use today, the Bavitch is Bar Agabe Bar, the Rebbe Rashab's mikveh. The Rebbe Rashab's mikveh is Bar Agabe Bar. What's the Maila? What's the Chiddush? What's the Ufta of the Rebbe Rashab's mikveh over? Why do we insist? Of course, Ba'asre the Rav, and of course, Kivin the Nafak and everything. But why are we so halachically? What's the advantage of Bar Agabe Bar legabe another mikveh? First of all, very simple. You can do. I believe you learned. You know that, as we said before, and you had already mega shamim, but you had also minor those problems of cold. What's the big mile of Bar Agabe Bar? Legabe the mikveh legabe. But that time, mainly when they left the cities, so the mikvahs that they used was be'ikah or mayan, and afterwards was when it was bar gabe bar, megasham, so it's or ashaka or they used zriya. What's the mile? Just stamp practically? What's the mile of ashaka legabe zriya? And what's the mile of zriya legabe ashaka? The mile of, what's the mile of ashaka legabe zriya? Huh? That's one mile. It's less diluted. And what's in this same point? What's the mile of zriya legabe ashaka? Huh? The fact you're saying okay. So the mile of ashaka is as you just mentioned is very good. That it's less diluted than zriya. The mila of zriya, you're saying now comes out that this mila of zriya, that it's zorua, in itself becomes a chisaron after the first time, the second time, the third time. The chisaron fun, the mila of zriya comes now. Nachazach. What's the mile of zriya legabe ashaka? The fact that it's zerua. Huh? It becomes part of the water. It wasn't diluted. It's not that it's. That's why for ashaka you need it to be connected. That's why for ashaka, when Yeruch brings it. It hasn't transformed into megashamim. It's just touching. What's das guf is a chisaron in hashaka. The chisaron is that it could become zeichalin. If you say that you want to connect the two holes the whole time, now the truth is that the zriya that's mentioned in Shulchan Aruch and the zriya that we use today is not the same zriya. The zriya that's mentioned in Shulchan Aruch is what kind of zriya? It's left inside. The zriya that we use today, it overflows. According to certain poskim, once it overflows, then no. According to certain poskim, the fact that it overflows, the question is zeichalin? Zeichalin is for sure d'oraisa. Shuvin machlokes. The question is zeichalin a psul mitzat toiveling or a psul be'etzem? Could zeichalin kasher the water? Could zeichalin kasher the water when you're pouring it in? There's a problem with zriya. The problem with zriya is that when you're filling up the mikveh with tap water into the Megashomim, so it's Zriya, then b'shas ma'aser, what's happening? It's overflowing. If it's overflowing, then it is zoichalin. If it's zoichalin, then lav dafke that it could kasha the may. What's the solution for that? For that problem?
Close up the hole before. Close up the hole when the tap water falls into the mirror, so yeah.
To fill up the hole and then later on unplug it. That would be a theoretical solution. The solution that's given, the typical solution is put a pipe that the Zriya should go deeper down. If the Zriya goes deeper down, then you have a boim saw on top of the boim saw that's kosher, that's not yet zoichalin, and it becomes kosher inside, and then when it overflows, it only overflows on top and not on the bottom. So it became kosher with the boim saw that's on the bottom, it mixed with the boim saw that's on the bottom, and then afterwards it only overflows on top. So the eitzah that's given is to put a pipe that goes down. Is that an ideal solution? Huh? The problem is that this same idea, that's a solution that the pipe should go down, which isn't a good idea to have a boim saw on top, is also a problem. Because the question is, what's pshat zoichalin? Zoichalin means that the water is going to leak out, or zoichalin is that the whole water is on the way to go out. If the whole water is on the way to go out, so if you put the Zriya, the pipe, all the way on the bottom, then what are you doing? You're making that the whole water in a certain way, even though if you switch off the pump, what's going to happen? If you switch off the pump, what's going to happen? No water will go out. Enochinami. Mitzad sheni, now that it's on, all the water that's inside is ready to go out. If all the water is going to go out, then all of it is zeichalin. Huh? Some people say the ideal solution for that would be then is to have arboim saw on top, on top and arboim saw on the bottom. You put the pipe of Zriya, arboim saw into the water, and you have another arboim saw under it. The problem is, how do you translate arboim saw? Is it 400 liters? Is it 1,000 liters? And if you want to be machmed 1,000 liters, that means that anachach isara mitzriya is that you have to heat all the water. You're heating double water. Verstanden nicht? No. If I have my mikveh, yeah? My mikveh is over here. This is my mikveh. I have to heat this water. Over here, I have my shaka. Over here, my shaka, I don't have to heat this water because they're touching. But if my tap water is running through this water, then I don't only have to heat this water, I have to heat this water as well. Then I have to heat both waters. That's just a technical, and to which extent, for once it's not a big deal, but if you use it every day and it's double the heat, okay. In andere Wörter, there is a problem, l'chol hadeis, with Zriya. There's a problem, not just a chisan, there's a halachic problem with Zriya, which is that the Zriya of the Shulchan Aruch, it all stayed in one place. Masha'enk in the Zriya that we use today, according to certain paskim, comes out that it does not kasher the water. Elamai, you put it lower, and if you put it lower, Elamai, you put 2 shiurim. If you put 2 shiurim, then it's not so possible. Yeah. And over there it did move. But over there, it stayed. First of all, over there was a Barim Salamata. Correct. Facts too that over there you also have it. Okay, we'll see. Good. Okay. In a typical hashaka, you have a chisaron of, besides, as you mentioned beforehand, the chashash sometimes of zeichelin, sometimes, and it's the water hasn't transformed. Over there you have more that it's the mile from Yadain is the chisaron from the in a very, very simple way. If it's when you have ba gabi ba, everybody knows the letter of the Rebbe. People learned that it is hashaka. The Rebbe, there's a letter from the Rebbe to be makbit that the ba gabi ba, that the water should fall in parallel. That it should also be considered zriya. Some people today do not build it exactly that way for more practical, for technical reasons, but it's lav dafka maila. So even when the overflow, that it should fall parallel inside. Zeh pashat. Achutz that the Rebbe is saying that it's a shakhan. There's another problem that you have with zriya. A typical normal zriya that you use, you have to be careful that it's completely dry. Over here, Gimel, let me just say one thing very interesting. That's in Gimel. When you come to empty a bar, so you say Gimel today is how much? Less than a liter. No, that's a lot.
It's very little when you pour it on a boil.
Let me just say something. When you make a bar, what's important when you make a bar is not to put tiles on a bar. I'm not talking about the mikvah, I'm talking about the bar. There's different ways how to attach the tiles to the wall. But what you have a lot of times, you have cavities between the tiles and the wall. In Kvahaya, I saw this. We empty the mikveh. Of course, when you empty a bar, you dry it, you heat it, then you put in a heat. You dry it completely, you empty it completely, you dry it completely, you put in a heater, and so on. And I saw was, it took 3 days, we left it, and every day it filled up with water. Not filled up, but there was, a few cups of water on the bottom. The water came down from behind the tiles. In andere Werte, the Gimel, the idea of Gimel is not theoretical. There is more than Gimel that could stay behind the tiles and come down. That's one of the reasons people will say to clean and so on. It's much better not to put tiles, but to put cement, to have it directly the cement and not tiles. No. I'm talking about all the other beirers. Achutz barat tefillah. Barat tefillah you have to. All the other beirers. Huh? It's at cleaning and so on. Practical. Not halachic. Of course, mitzat practical. It's not so simple. You have to. Everybody knows the Rebbe's chumrah, the Rebbe's makbid, that the tiles in the mikveh should be tiles without a keli in the back. There's a chumrah from the Rebbe. Huh?
What's that mean? What's tiles with the kli? What's tiles without it?
Normally, a tile, for the tile to attach itself to the wall, So the tile Amazogan has lines and different things in the back. And the lines that are on the back, if you turn it around, then b'derech b'meile, it's a shtickle keli.
Not all four sides.
So you have lines that are open. If it's a line that goes through and through, ain't a chinami. The company name is written in the back. All different.
So is it indented or stands out? Or
Correct. But normally it's indented. It's not, doesn't stand out normally. It's much easier for them to. But normally you have lines, but it's not lines that go all the way through. It's lines that it's a keli. There's a chumrah from the Rebbe to have dafka tiles that are not a keli. But there's two ways. The whole mikveh we do it that way. Even though very interesting, even though we do the whole mikveh that way, the bottom where the tiles that you stand on is much more chomedic than the side tiles. Why? No. There's halach and Shulchan Aruch that's not in Hilchos Mikvos, that tefillah on a keli, even b'diavad, the tefillah doesn't help. We just open up brackets, nothing to do with this. Another topic of there's a machloikas today, there's a machloikas today between certain poskim in a practical sense, in a place where they do not have a mikveh, if you should tovel in the ocean or not. You have certain poskim. You have a tshuva from Rav Padva. B'shumoifen not the tovel in b'shumoifen. Huh? The same reason why it says in the Gemara that he made a mikveh for his daughter, and there's 8 mefarshim in the Machlokes Rishonim. What exactly did he do? Those are all the chisronos that there are today. You're scared, it's cold, it's dirty, people could see. There's all different. Middle of the day or middle of the night? So let me just say one thing. So chatzitza. So the person you say is wearing Crocs, so there's no problem. So when he's wearing Crocs, it's tefillah even b'diavad.
But you always go water first, so it's not the sand is washed off. What's the last thing
The answer is that in certain cases you're right. One would say to tovel in the ocean, but it's not so pashut lechatchila in all cases to say ocean is an answer and a solution. Lechatchila, according to a lot of poskim today, it's better to avoid it when possible. What I wanted to say was getting back to the tiles, tefillah b'keli, tefillah al gabe keli, which is a different din than tefillah b'keli. Okay, whatever. You have tefillah, you have a yeshuvim, you have and this is. Okay, so there's one of the challenges is to find the right tiles. That's a chumrah of the Rebbe, not of the. Getting back, we're talking about gimolugin. That's what we spoke about tiles. Getting back to the gimolugin, so that's the chisaron of that. That is one of the difficulties with Zriya. Pashut, very very simple. One of the when we're talking about bara gabe bara. So achutz that it's Ashok and Zriya, but it's not just the milas of Ashok and Zriya. It's much more than that. It's not just the let's go step by step. The chashash of Zeichalin by Ashaka, by Bara Gabe Bar, you don't have it. Because even though the two holes are open, there's no risk of overflow. The chashash of emptying it, the gimolugin, you don't have it. The chisaron of it, every time you're putting in, it's diluting, you don't have. And on the other hand, it's mamish the same water because you're filling it up, it's the bottom to the top. No problem. So you'll tell somebody, bar gabe bar, the meile hat the chesronis von Hashem, the chesronis von Zriya. The problem is that a lot of times when you're building a mikveh, that's not for shliach, that's not for himself. So you want to. There's a Lubavitcher mikveh, and I want a mikveh that's not a Lubavitcher mikveh. So what do you have to build? Huh? So bichlal. So some people tell you build all three. The truth is, if you're building a mikveh for a shliach, for a Lubavitcher, then if it's only if he is his own boss, then it's much easier bar gabe bar and finished. Because Hashaka and Zriya, no, because Hashaka has different chisronis and Zriya has different chisronis. In other words, it's not bichlal masayim mana that you have a bar gabe bar plus Hashaka plus Zriya. The problems that you have with Hashaka, the problems you have with Zriya, mitzad sheni. There's even a letter from mitzad sheni when you attack a building and it's. Then sometimes they will tell you Hashaka, sometimes they'll tell you Zriya. Rabbi Posen has a very interesting shitta. He likes to put Hashaka and Zriya sometimes in the same bar. If you're not choishish to nasan savanotasa, so he says make one bar and you can play with it, say Hashaka and say Zriya.
If you have both a bar outside and a bar attached,
Yeah.
why would that create, and you're having, let's say, Zriya and it's flowing in onto the bar captain, why is that with the tap water flowing onto the bar tap?
The answer is that in your. I'm not going into halacha. One second. The answer is that in your head, because there's the letter from the Rebbe, bar gabe bar is also Zriya. You will find people that they will say that they don't consider it Zriya. This is nothing to do with halacha. I was in the middle of a mikveh. We built a mikveh somewhere, the outskirts of Paris. We made a bar, and a Mestaget came along and he said he wanted to show, lama machen besser, lama machen eichet. So I said exactly your taina. I said, that's doch Zriya da. But for him it didn't pass as Zriya. Because it's not on top and it's on the bottom. I want to bring out another point, nothing to do with this, that is mamish negeya. It's important. Huh? Yeah, I said that there's a letter from the Rebbe, that the Rebbe points out that when the tap water falls in, it should fall in parallel to the hole on the bottom. That it should be considered. That it should be a bar. That it should not only be that bar gabe bar should not only be considered hashaka, but should also be considered zriya. Sometimes it's a bit of a challenge. You understand or not?
Yeah,
No. 1 second. Let me just explain something no. There's nothing to it. Let me explain a few points. The idea of bar gabe bar, one could discuss about it if it's mitzad nos and so or not. But what I'm bringing out is that there's certain milas, even without the topic of nos and so or not. Lav dafke, that the whole idea is because nos and so or not. And to answer that, and some people will taina that the fact that the Rebbe asks to put the tap water parallel to the hole, if you put it parallel to the hole, then there's a bigger chance of it mixing up. If it's a bigger chance of it mixing up, if you're tiny the bar gabe bar, the whole mile is that there's less chance of it mixing up. So then why are you demanding to put it parallel? So I'm saying the bar gabe bar is lav dafka of course, there's much less mixing up. When the, huh?
Or hot water.
Of course, there's much less chance of it mixing up than minatzad because you filled up the hole and you put but it's much less chance of it mixing up. Let me go back. Nachazach, that's important. One of the things, lavdafka pi'alacha, that it's likuva, but what people do complain today, there's certain paskim, is when you do have a system with a pump, that it's better that the pump should not be in the basement, but the pump should be upstairs. Again,
Physics.
when you're building a mikveh, sometimes you're limited in space. There's two ways. You have a heating system for a mikveh and a pump. When you're building a mikveh, so you need it to be cleaned and you need it to be heated. So you could clean it and heat it inside the mikveh. You put a radiator inside the mikveh, and you put a aquarium filter inside the mikveh, so the water doesn't have to go out to be cleaned. It stays inside the mikveh. The Recharev mentioned before to Rabbi Posen, he suggests to make a mikveh bar gabi bar with a heater and an aquarium filter. Aquarium filter means it doesn't go out; it stays inside the water. Saying one of the but he suggests today, because if you're doing it such a way, then you can make the whole mikveh only make geshamim. If the water is being heated and being cleaned and being treated in itself, then you don't even need tap water. The whole reason why you need tap water is he has different systems today of building mikvahs from Mayan. Does that work? It does work. It does work because today with bleach and so on, most water is treated and cleaned. In a normal swimming pool, where you have a massive swimming pool, they could easily not change the water for a long time. So
How long?
Best in it fragen. I'm saying that you don't have. They put in things in the water to clean it, to treat it, and so on, and that you could put in. That doesn't change. Not shinamara. Not. In other words, there's no problem of using rainwater. Practically, I haven't seen it. There are mikvahs like that, but that is also, if you do that, if you want to do that, then you're going into another topic of having a separate oitza of megashamim or not having, and the challenges of how to emptying, even though the Rebbe Rashab does demand the oitza, and so on, and the Rostov, they did have an oitza. I can't hear, sorry. But the way we are doing it, 1 second, you can have a mikveh with 10 boilers. I'm not sure they built with 9 boilers. You can have a mikveh, let me say a mikveh, what they call good. Hashaka, Zriya, Bar, Gabi, Bar. And have all of it, make a shamim. Who doesn't bother? I'm saying you can have whatever you want, and there's no risk. Just want to bring out, okay, sorry. So we're talking about a lot of people today, I'm saying in Allah and they're right, are against using the system of, that's one kind of system that is heated inside. There's a different kind of system, the water is pumped out, and it's heated and cleaned outside, and then it comes back in. That is a different kind of system. Al pi halacha l'chol hadayis, if it's turning, it's a problem of zeichelin. So 2 things. First of all, that's why a lot of Rabbanim will prefer to build a mikveh that doesn't have a pump in such a way, but that it's cleaned inside, that it stays inside. The problem, that it stays inside. There's a different kind of system, which is that it goes out, you clean it, and it goes back in. What's very important is certain people that build mikvahs, they build mikvahs that the water that comes in, the problem is every mikveh after X amount, even a few months after you built it, has problems of steam and vapor. That it gets ruined. So what do they find a good solution? When the water comes back in, that it should come back in without splashing. So how do you do it? What do you do, Tachlis? It goes in from underneath. What's the problem with it? Huh? No. The problem is that you don't see that it's zeichelin. The water is turning. I'm not going into the idea if the water should be turning, if you should have a system that the water doesn't go out. If you have a system, because that is a technical question, it depends on who's taking care of the mikveh and so on. But if you have a system that the water goes out, the problem is you have to be able to see that the water went out and that the water is coming in. And the water is going out. You don't see that it's going out. The only way you can see it is when you see the water coming back in. If you see the water coming back in, but if you put the water coming back in underneath, then you don't see it at all. In other words, what's very important is... Exactly. I just want to add one small, very important point. When the Rebbe Rashab made Bar Gabi Bar, he did not make it for this reason. But let's say the pump is on B'Shas Maisa. There's no question about it that it's not that it's mamish emes a problem. And I'm not trying to say that it's kosher or not. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm asking you guys that you started already to learn the halachas. Is the tefillah kosher or not kosher? Why? Huh? I don't understand what you're saying. Why is it kosher? It's not schila shein and nikas. There's a lot of water going out. No. With Sai, you're mixing up two things. Zechilo she'eino nikares, that's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, means that it loses a few drops a day. Over here, we're talking about that there's a lot of water going out, a lot of water coming back in. It's hidden. So it's no good. No, Nachman. You're right that you're saying that if I'm asking you to put your head a swan, if you're looking for it, maybe you could tell, maybe you can't. And if you're not looking for it, if you're not looking for it, then all I'm saying is that the people that build the mikveh, today this sounds a prat. When it comes to Maisa, when you build a mikveh, it's important that if it's a kind of system that goes around, to be able to see it, to be able to realize. Nachamal, let's go back to the... Is it kosher or not? If the pump is on. Huh? It's zeichelin. Zeichelin is the raisa. But you guys learned already a little bit. If it goes... What's the din? Which kind of schila is kosher? Huh? Mayan, that's one case. Another case? Huh? Then it's not considered schila. No. Yeah. If it's not b'teich hamikveh. If it goes out and it goes back in, is this considered goes out and goes back in or not?
These shouldn't be considered coming back in because you're putting it back in. It's not like a lake that has another thing there that goes around.
Correct.
You're pulling it on the other side of the lake.
Correct. Bepashtus, it's going out and going back in. But the question is, and if it's going in mitzad another koyach, then boifin achipashtus, it's not okay. Now, if
It's kosher, but it's above the
Two
40
separate
saw.
things. The going out and coming back in here is two separate things.
now
Above the
the
40 saw, it's kosher. It's different. Schil is above the 40 saw.
if it's not a bar gabe bar, then the pipe is on the bottom. If the pipe is on, when the pipe is on the bottom, then,
Below the
Mashenkin, if you have a bar on the bottom, so you have another 40 saw. This Tzemach Tzedek, the emes is, it's a lechem besimla machlokes, it's a learning pshat and the machlokes from Mechaber Amal. If b'diavad, b'diavad and the chatchila and so on. What I want to say is that there is, I'm not talking about chas v'shalom to be matter, I'm just saying that there is one of the milas of bar gabi bar, one of the b'diavad lachar ha'maaseh, there is a difference in a pump if it's bar gabi bar or if it's not bar gabi bar. If it's bar gabi bar, then there's more leeway, there's more what to talk about. Mashenka, when it's not bar gabi bar, then there's
Consider a shaka, is it possible?
no, we're talking about
Consider it
huh?
It's not what?
We consider, first of all, the size that we make of the hole between the two beiras makes it much more to be considered a connecting bar. That's number one. Number two is noch eine interessante Sache. You're saying mitzad haboim solamato, yeah?
That's one of the reasons.
Now, it's noch eine Sache. If you have
Yeah, it's all connected. It's all one loop, and the keli is connected to the ka'an. The water doesn't get stuck anywhere. The whole time it's connected.
it's noch eine Sache.
It's never left the mikveh really.
That's that it's considered that it comes back in. Is it
It didn't go and come back in. It's continued.
There's another point. Is it
The whole shofetz haneg. The whole of the pipe of the filter is 1.5 inches. Shofetz haneg. You never make a filter hole smaller than 1.5 inches. The whole system is just a whole shofetz haneg that's going. Water is going out and coming back in. All connected to shofetz haneg is giving me this chibur the whole time. Even if the water inside the filter is possible, it's connected to the kosher mikveh the whole time. It's not going out. So that solves that problem. But it's still, there's no schila because it's all connected the whole time. But etzim is no schila.
That's because it's going out and coming back in and it's connected.
It's connected.
There's
and
another-
it's above the line, and it's 40 under it, and we build the bed at the bottom in such a way you can toivel in there. So even if Tzemach Tzedek said if you can toivel in the 40 saw under the line, that's also fine. Make
But-
the bottom board bigger.
And for the people that hold that you didn't toivel, the Ramah, the poil that you need to, it's not just enough that there's a bones on the bottom, but you need to toivel.
Yeah, but also what's considered a schil. That's a Tzemach Tzedek is the whole thing. Only what's right next to the hole is a schil. Everything else is not a schil.
No, but noch a Sach. The Mishnah says that what's in the a mikveh, a pipe next to a mikveh is part of the mikveh. Is this schila from the bottom of the pipe or the top of the pipe?
Schil is from the bottom. That's where you see it. It's pulling out from the bottom, not pulling out from the top.
It's pulling out from the bottom, but the whole thing is pulling out then. The question is, do you say that the schila is from the bottom, or do you say if you stop the filter, is the inside of the pipe considered part of the mikveh? If the inside of the pipe is considered part of the mikveh, then is the schila from the top or from the bottom?
The way you build the pipes today is from the top.
So if it's from Nachamal.
When you build the mikveh, when you build a filter today, you build the pipe taking the water out of the filter in such a way that it doesn't pull out in a straight line. It pulls out from the bottom, but right away it takes a turn and goes up. And the water line stays. If you turn off the filter, you take the filter and separate it, the water in the filter will be along the same height as the mikveh because it goes up. So really the schil is only going to start above the water line of the mikveh. From the top of the mikveh, not from the bottom of the mikveh.
If you taina that the schila is from the top and not from the bottom, I'm not talking about according to the shitta. I'm not talking about the shitta that says it's kosher mikra because you have a boim sa. No, Fran was felt the chisan that you didn't table on the bottom. The chisan is you didn't table on the bottom. You have to table on the top. According to the opinion that holds that you have to table on the top, likuva, could you consider, because the filter pulls from the top and not from the bottom, could you consider it?
Right, but you don't have to go that far because even according to Tzemach explains that Schila only refers to the hole, which is only the water right next to the hole. When it says Nina Rulatz, it only refers to the water. It doesn't hold like the mark. It says it only refers to the water right next to the hole. So if it's the water right next to the hole, if you stand a foot away from the filter hole, you're already not in the water that's being zeichel. You're in water that's vashbayim. That's the way Tzemach explains it. When he goes to the whole thing, in those 36.
In andere Werte, there is a additional milah which is not developed in Svarim. In Ba Gabi Ba, in a case of B'di'evet, that there's more leeway to be makel B'di'evet lachar ha'maaseh than if it's not Ba Gabi Ba. Lesikum, lechatchila for Lubavitchers, because of the other chisronis, it's lav dafke kedai to build the additional barriers. Mashenka, when you're building for a shtatisha, it is a mile. You have to build the other barriers because they will impose it. And there's a letter from the Rebbe. You remember the letter from the Rebbe? There's a letter from the Rebbe that says that lechatchila yes to do in certain cases. Yeah, some people prefer shaka, some people prefer zriya, and some people be makbit dafke. Or there's the other way to make it saya shaka and saya zriya. I didn't want to go into details, but your topic is more developed. So what he asked yeah.
Well, you mentioned that.
Yeah, I didn't go.
What you mentioned was the Chazon Ish's way of solving the Zeri problem. Right.
That is the way that today. That is the way that a lot of people do today. But the chatchila, the additional bayras are not always. It's not a case that bichlal masai mana. There's also a chisaron. There are different ways how to do it with a system out of the mikveh or in the mikveh. That really depends who's taking care of the mikveh and so on. And there are I just mentioned that there's additional halachic milas with in a case b'di'evet if there was a pump that was on.
When the one who's managing the mikveh is not bucking close, then better not do anything on the side.
There's less complications and
Less
risks.
potential for issues.
The only problem is
it's not properly. The shliach who's running the mikveh has to be a Talmid Chacham, and nobody's doing properly.
that is why Rabbi Posen b'derech klal prefers Ba Gabi Ba because there's less risk of problem. Not mitzad the Rabbi Rashab, mitzad less risk of problem. The only thing is that when there's a bara tachton and so on, the water does become dirty. So there's a few eitzes for that. First of all, as we said beforehand, you bleach it. You throw in the chlor, the bleach directly in the bottom. That's the zicha sehaft. And even b'chaf of the mikveh. That's special out to clean it. Second of all, it does have to be cleaned midday palm to palm. That's amis.
How often?
Depends how much you use it. A men's mikveh, the bottom bar will be filled with dirt within a half a year. A woman's mikveh, they clean themselves much better before going to the mikveh, and they don't go so many people at a time. So the chance of the bottom bar getting dirty takes a few years for it to get dirty. Well, it depends how many people use it. You can't say for sure. It depends each place. You calculate. I mean, if you have a regular Chabad house that has 3 women using it a month, the water is not going to get dirty for many, many years.
In theory, one is supposed to change it more often. Practically, people do not change it. In practically, and it's not dafke concern, because it depends if you have, depends on the other mikvahs, depends if you have bordered, if you have a oitza or not, and so on. Well,
In Florida, you can change it every 6 months because the amount of rain that falls in there, you could replenish the boat.
the problem is not just that. The problem is if you have a oitza. If you don't have a oitza and you have to close it, then it depends. Or you have a, huh?
How you get the water out?
Whatever way you will do with the oitza will not be top. Because he has nice pictures.
You have different tricks on how to get the plug out without the.
So you knock it, and then the thing. Do you put a bowl underneath it? You don't.
The bowl is filled to the hole, the second hole on the side. Every shit that has its own.
That's what I'm saying. That whatever way you will do, it will not be ideal, huh?
The Rebbe Rashat from the Oitzer was 10 feet or more, and it took a few turns along the way. No, so if you do it, but you have to make Amshacha. It's not 3 tvachim. You have to make Amshacha with a turn. Amshacha with a turn.
Stamazoi, a few points have to go, but just the Amshacha of 3 tvachim has to be. I'm not going into the different cases of Amshacha and it's really loya or not or whatever. First of all, there is a chumrah that the Amshacha should be, the old Amshacha should be 1 tefach wide. Some people don't, Nachazach, before I forget, it's important when you have the Baratachton for it to be a tefach high, amma high, a chutza barm so, but it should be amma.
Why?
Because it's not enough to have the quantity of water. You need that a person should be able to tovel in it. It's I mean, even if you're standing up.
Well, if it's an amma high, you can't stand.
No, yeah, but you need, yeah. In other words, you cannot.
So yesterday, 7 the highest. 7 tvachim is a foot.
In theory, if you just want a barm saw, then build a box and build another box around it, and you'll have the quantity of water, but a person can't table in it. If you have 1,000 liters,
Very flat.
if you
You can't table it. You have to be able to table it. You don't have to, but there's a chumrah to make sure that you table the bottom boat also.
In any position.
Yeah, any position. We're not.
Amma is 6 tvachim, and Al Tereba writes 7 tvachim, and it's the Kuni Mikvah for the extra tefach over there. So you try to make the bottom boat at least that height. The person should be able to table on the bottom boat. That way, the bottom boat becomes its own independently. Huh? You need it, and if you make it only 7 tvachim high, you need more than 7 tvachim wide to get the amount of water in there that we want.
The main problem is the height. Side mitzad, the halachic reason, and size. Sometimes you can't dig too deep.
You can't dig too deep. Basically, you should just make it very wide and an amma high.
But that is an amma high, exactly.
7
Yeah, that's exactly what we're saying, that it's not enough. A lot of times you will have it too big and you'll have to make it smaller. The quantity, why? Because if you use the whole size of the mikveh, then in a lot of cases, you'd have a half an amma and there'll still be your 1,500 liters.
Right. So you're saying how?
So we're saying that.
Wait 3 years to fill it up. It depends on where you are, range-wise.
Well, same size quantity wise.
Yeah, but if you need an amma height and you make it wide, let's say you take a mikveh mayor and you make it along the whole bottom of the boat, to fill it up at amma height, you need quite a few shiurim of double or bunch, and it will take you a long time to fill it up.
It's not for that.
kedai. That's why you make it in such a way that you could fill
A
it
lot
up
of times you have to fill up the bottom of cement, half of it, because you want to make it an amma high, and so on. Understand what I'm saying or no? Let's say practical in Amshachas, a lot of times when you have the pressure of the water, so the water jumps. You need gimel tfachim, which is not a lot, but by making a corner or different things, not that the water jumps. It has to float. It has to go on the surface. The problem, huh?
Not bounce off the wall.
No, bounces off before. The pressure of the water comes out of the pipe. It's not going to drip down right when the Amshacha starts. It's going to jump 2 inches, 3 inches. So you make the Amshacha
Long enough.
Starting, you make it 15, 16 inches. So
when the water lands.
4 inches to jump, and then it starts to flow.
Do you want it? Or you don't want it? No.
The nature makes it that it jumps. The pressure.
The pressure of the water.
It's not your choice that makes it jump. There is a solution. If you make a corner or whatever, you put the pipe the other way. If you put the pipe the other way, then it goes backwards. Then b'dach b'meila. You understand or not? If you turn on a pipe with pressure and it comes out over here,
And it has pressure, it goes farther away.
exactly, and that's not hamshacha. Hamshacha means it's running underground.
That's the whole
Yeah, not always. Okay, or there's another solution to cut it. If the water comes down here and it's with pressure and it goes there and it goes back, then b'dach b'meila, it's running on the, call it a corner, call it whatever you want. That's ein zach. Second of all, kaka, agabe kaka, roye livloya, is a high percentage of sand, more in cement, a high percentage of sand, more than normal, and with the pressure, it does wear off often. You're building a mikveh, yeah? A lot of times you build the top of the mikveh of cement that the mikveh should be, that the amshacha should be on that, on the actual box of the cement. Now, first of all, you have to make sure the bottom cement is a cement that is waterproof, and this cement, you want it to livloya, not waterproof. You're changing the cement from the bottom to the cement to the top.
You add a layer, and then you have to replace it every 2 years.
You have to make sure this layer gets warm because it's a mixture of a much higher, much more sand than normal cement. With the pressure of water, it gets eaten up.
Well, it needs to run the light to be considered karka.
Huh?
Why does that have to be run the light?
To be karka, from Amshacha to be karka has to be the blade.
You have it in the Ramah. There's 2 reasons, not in every case. Not in every case. A Amshacha has to be according to every shitta livloya. But yeah.
2 places. Tuma is not so common.
It's all I'm saying is that I said that it's more than gimel tfachim and that you have to redo it every X amount of time. So some people will say sekedai nitzu to use lechatchila all of it's the not good cement. That way you'll have problems with leaks with the time. In other words, it's kedai to have underneath even if the side amshacha a proper cement and then on top a layer of cement, because if not, there's
Anybody has any questions before we release the rabbi?
Good.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. Slach rabbi. Mazel tov again.
Good.
Chasna. Next time you're in town, give you next year.
Okay. We'll say that. Okay.